The one thing about that's a bummer for the body, let's say it is the older sibling, and we don't all have to agree, right? Um, and the body doesn't have to deal as directly with the domain of emotions, although the emotions are expressed through the body, right? That they're the latest thinking on emotions is that there's some relationship. It's a mind-body phenomena. It's not all body, it's not all mind. Some emotions are more mentally led. For example, like guilt, right? Is like one of those things that's inorganic at its source, but then can enter the body and be consuming, right? Or shame, because those are relational emotions that express themselves through the body, but they're relational first in relationship to the happening, right? In life, and then the body starts to wear it, right? So but then there are other emotions like fear that come right out, right? That you don't even have to have that's the fight or flight part of the nervous system. It just comes flying out, right? What an amazingly important sensation from inside to out love is, right? It's a transformative. Gratitude's another one that helps you go in and settle, right? But that's another one that moves from outside to in and then back to out. Love is a great catalyst of expression of both mind and body, right? So you start thinking about the things that human beings are calling emotions, and they're consistently solving, or our innovations in what I think is part of the hardest truth for human beings is how do you integrate inner truth to the outer world, and outer truth, how do you take it to the inner world and then back out, right? So one of the things that if body's the older sibling in this story I'm spinning now, what's bummer for the body is that it ends up having to wear the mind's habits, right? So one of the things I was writing, so I've been going through some stuff, and I find myself looking down and dropping my chest more, right? And it's like, wait, right? It would be easy to do. It's funny when you start to think about especially the future. I think, well, everyone's different, but what all of a sudden one of the litmus tests I've been doing lately is if I'm having a certain thought, what happens when I look up and open my chest? Does the thought stay? Right? Or have my mind got into a habit of concern? Right? One of the great things about a yoga practice and a mind-body practice and a body practice is the reasons why you're thinking, with some health issues I've been going through, the reason why you are thinking about it with your mind, you're trying to control the future, you're trying to do all sorts of things, right? And then that's a place, that's a habit. If your mind gets too, and this is with disability, right? Your mind has to manage so much that there can be a tendency to actually get stuck in certain places in your consciousness, right? Not just in certain thoughts. And that what I love about a yoga practice is that you don't have to figure out why that habit is always the habit, right? If you can receive the difference between looking down and looking up and taking in more light, doesn't matter what you're thinking about. It's whether if you can open your chest and go back, right, and take in more light and receive it. Because the mind's going to stop you from receiving stuff, right? But if you can receive more, how about the people that I always quote? We have such trite, good lines. So he's a glass half empty person or a glass half full person. Those are mind habits. I mean, clearly there's beauty everywhere. Some days you can't see it, right? Right? You don't see it as well. And part of this is what I love about yoga and a yoga practice, you can go, wait, I'm in that habit place again. I'm like not receiving as much again, right? And you can transform some of this without solving it. You can just start, like if you're feeling ungrounded, you can practice grounding. And here we into our method, right? You can lay over a bolster with your chest open and feel supported. And you don't have to like convince your mind, because your body might be the older sibling, that you can bypass all the attachments that the mind has formed from living and go right back to the body and go a little bit closer at the source. Because one of the things that I think is hard for people on a practical level to get is that your body's more connected to living than your mind is, right? Your body guarantees you're living for as long as it can, not your mind. Thank God. I don't have to think about my next breath. I don't have to think about my peanut butter toast I ate and digest it. My body's taking care of it. So sit up straight and tall. So when we've been talking about what's the resource, what's the source of your resilience? What's the resource? My mom is having she's 88 and having a whole bunch of pain in her back. And what I was trying to talk to her about yesterday was to remember that there are places that don't hurt, right? That you have to foster sensations that don't hurt, especially when you're in pain, right? You have to remind yourself that you are not limited to the places that hurt. That there's and you can call that soul, you can call it spirit, you can call it parasympathetic nervous system. I don't care what you call it, right? There's a place in your manifestation that precedes all the drama you have in your life. Doesn't mean the drama's bad. It means there's a resource here. So, and you can support that resource. Start to center, feel your feet on the floor, your sitting bones. And what the yogis are going to try to tell you is that that core resource of manifestation, the guarantor of life and function, is more your spine than it is your mind. Right? It's even more your spine than your brain, probably. Right? So I'm going to quiet down and soften my organs of perception, my jaw, the inside of my mouth. I talk so damn much. I'm forgetting to relax my belly, to relax my throat. So as I'm doing this, I also want to stay aware of the front side of my body and the back side of my body. I want to make sure I know that I'm channeling earth up. It's rising up, and the lighter energy, the air energy, where the light comes from, can also come down. So I'm inhabiting the cacophony of energy around me and centering it in my spine. These are not thoughts. This is what's happening. My mind just needs to narrow it down. If you can and stay on balance, which I'm not gonna, bring your hands into prayer. Use symmetry. So rather than put my hands together in prayer, I'm gonna find a line down down my forehead, down the bridge of my nose, in my midline. I'm gonna make sure that I open the collarbones and expand from the midline, and especially from between my shoulder blades. And then as I open that space, I'm going to hit down with my sitting bones and repose and invigorate up. But there's a good chance you might have just clenched your jaw and the inside of your mouth. Repose. Find it all. Find the emptiness and the action, the emptiness and your will. Feel your skin. Feel the whole room. Stay centered in your spine. Prepare your mind to do yoga. It's your space. And your body was here before you. At least when you have a body. Notice the breath into each nostril, each lung. Keep it grounded by the bones in your butt, the feet on the floor. Feel your skin. Raise your head up with closed eyes. Open your eyes. Hold on just 1 second. I have to, hold on. All right, I'm back. That was my mom, my 8-year-old mom calling, which is a little bit worried this time of the morning. So I was like checking out to make sure she was okay. So that was a mom call. All right. So let's get a little bit lighter in the body, right? So like lift up, right? Start moving around. All right, so start moving around. Okay, so we're moving around, right? And so we're making the space, right? I don't know about you, but I get really happy that I can be grounded and do little fun things like balance my head over my neck, right? So like sit up straight and tall again. Find your bones and your feet, and then add the subtlety of balancing your head over your neck. And you know, maybe you're not as in love with that sensation. I think it's because I continually jet my head forward for balance. But when I actually lift my chest and balance my head over my neck, right? All of a sudden I feel more awake, right? It's like, wait, I've been grinding. I've been thinking too much. I get to like have more. And now I want you to take this, pick a point, put a finger if you can on the center of your chest, right? And then from there, start to lift up and then lengthen the front of your neck, right? Up. So this is getting longer. And then release. So this is what I love about yoga. So have you noticed that like when you start to pay attention to anchored at the grounding, bones grounding, right? And then you try to like think about the skin lengthening, this space lengthening, and you start like, I'm gonna do it again in a second, you start to lengthen here to here, right? Up like this, right? Does anyone notice to do that well, you start to feel the energy of your shoulder blades more? And you start to actually get more grounded between your shoulder blades. See, I freaking love that, right? So we got this thing going on. We're going to work on back bends, right? So I'm trying to get you to actually start to feel. So the hardest place to back bend is not your low back. The hardest place to back bend is your upper thoracic, right? Because the actual bones are actually knitted together better, right? And so, and then with me, you throw me right to the wolves because I'm fused right through there. So I've got a fusion right at the hardest part to back bend. So I've spent way too much time trying to will back bends, right? Because I've been trying to bust through the freaking thing, right? Not a good idea, right? So now I'm trying to get you to feel the subtlety of the movement, right? And so this idea of placing your hand here, right, on the center of your chest, watching as you pay attention to the skin. So by paying attention to the skin, you kind of get that awareness is more like the sky than it is like the earth. Can you kind of feel what I'm trying to describe there? And even balance is slightly more like the sky than the earth, right? But who knows, right? Find your own description, right? And so I'm trying to get a different kind of awareness here. But in order to be more focused on lengthening here, I have to drop my shoulder blades a little bit. So I'm watching as I take my chin back and then release. So remember, I'm like playing with my inner body all the time. So when I do it that consciously, I start to feel my legs more. Pay attention, see if you do too. And even if my suggestion makes you feel it more, I don't care, right? Because I want you to get that the expansion of the upper thoracic upward actually sends energy towards the earth. Okay, it does. Okay, so here I'm doing it again. I'm watching, I'm making my body go in pieces so my mind can be unified. This is Bikasangar. So my mind can be unified so I can feel the wholeness of my experience because I'm going into pieces. Weight here. As soon as I put weight in the center of my chest, I surrender to my sitting bones right away. I start to activate up and start to lift my chest. I'm trying to lengthen the skin on the front. To do that, all of a sudden do that well, I start to drop my shoulder blades. But have you noticed it's even cooler if you spread between your shoulder blades? Because then you can feel your legs more, right? And I don't mean physically. So then I'm going, and then here, it doesn't even matter. Once you do the back bend in the upper thoracic well here, it doesn't matter if your chin goes back. You can, just don't get dizzy, right? But what I want you to get is that there's a front and a back, but there's a horizontal movement, right, this way that shows you the earth, that helps you burst towards the sky, right? All this is going on? Oh, yes, it is. So this one, I'm going to take my head back. I'm not even leaning against the back of my chair yet. I'm trying to like unfold, unpack all the parts. Good, and then release. That's a little too much focus, huh? Except what if you back bend really well there? I think you might change your life. I don't know. It's up to you. Depends on if you receive it, right? Inhale, take your arm up. Exhale, revolve. Find the grounding where you want the other arm. Be your own yogi, for God's sakes. Don't feel inadequate, but know you could do it better. But the question is it your will that's going to help you do it better? Or is it something else? My money's on something else. Inhale, lift up, exhale, revolve. Wait, those damn yogis for teachers for a long time have been telling you to lift under your collarbones and broaden between your shoulder blades and hit down through your sitting bones and extend from the inner groin to the inner knee down to the inner heel. What the hell? Good. And then release. We're going to do it again. So what I want you to, I'm going to remember, you can do a yoga pose from any direction you want. So we're doing all this extra stuff, right? Lifting the collarbones, broadening. And I want that to show you how to go down through your legs, right? In a different way. Same side. Inhale up. Grab. Now find a place to ground. If I try to twist and I'm floating in space, I'm not going to do a good job, right? So I'm grounding here. So now I'm thinking, oh, if I lift under my collarbones and spread between my shoulder blades, right? And then I'm going to take my chin up just a little bit. Maybe take an inhale here to get my intercostal muscles involved. From the deep within, hit down through my sitting bones. Lift up, inhale, lift up, go down through your legs, exhale, revolve. So the revolving is like near the end of the pose, not the beginning. Good, and then release. Come back to center. You can make the revolving lead the pose. Remember, there's no one way to do any series of poses. Inhale, lift up. You want to practice them all, for God's sakes. Turn sideways. Find the right grounding for you. Be your own yogi, right? And guess what? There's a good chance your yoga teacher's got some pretty good instructions for grounding, right? Because he might or she might have done a lot more twists than you have, right? Because habits. So again, I'm lifting out of the collarbones. I'm spreading between the shoulder blades to open the doorway to hitting down through my sitting bones, to extend it from the inner groin to the inner knee. Inhale, lift up, and add the dynamicness of the twist on the spine. And then come on back to center. Holy moly. Gotta come out of that one for a second. Do it again. So you see me kind of jiggle around a little bit? Yeah. Because I got too gripped in that first one. So I'm doing it again, and I'm lifting under, I'm broadening, I'm hitting down through my sitting bones. I'm using the lift in my chest, taking the chin slightly up to find my legs. Let the light in from above. Inhale, lift up, exhale, revolve, add the dynamic energy created by the twist. Good. And then release. So one of the things that I learned the hard way in twists was to not try to necessarily take deep breaths, right? And then if you do twist long enough, you can take deeper breaths. But the idea that somehow the expansive breath is going to reveal the twist, it's a good way to do violence to yourself if you try to breathe too early on, at least too deeply in twists, right? So I want you to just sit in, straight up and down in seated Tadasana. And I want you to pay attention. Remember, we're trying to show you the legs now. So all this extra stuff on the upper body is to reveal a different connection to your legs, right? So on these next couple of breaths, and for whatever reason, I like to think about my inhalation as nudging the inner circumference of my rib cage. That causes me to slow down a little bit. Sometimes I've talked about it as like not that I've ever even been by a horse, but a horse nudging you with its nose, right? Your inhalation nudges the inner circumference of your ribs, of your rib cage. So there's the feeling of the outside, and then there's the inner circumference of your rib cage. And I want the inhalation to nudge the inner circumference because I'm trying to notice the intercostal muscles instead of make them get flooded with the inhalation. I'm trying to let the inhalation nudge it open, but from the inside edge to the outside edge. And once I nudge it open a little bit, then I want to, on the exhale, just feel the potential of it being more open. That's probably registered by your skin. So even on exhalation, I'm getting way into my own practice right now. I apologize, right? I don't really apologize. So I inhale and I nudge and it opens. I exhale and it deflates, but I keep the expansive feeling from the inhalation nudging into my ribcage. So even on exhale, I still feel the hope of the expansion of inhale. Right? Try it again. Now you're going to get better at this if you ground your sitting bones and find where your spine is. Right? So now you inhale. Stay hopeful and outward even on exhale. Feel the lightness. Now, I don't know about you, but when I feel the lightness, it makes me want to soften the inside of my mouth. Makes me want to have more of me. All right, so why are we doing all this now? We're going to twist again. Inhale, lift up. Exhale. Inhale. All this to help you with your breath in a twist, right? Instead of pushing your breath with your will in a twist. So ground down, rise up. At first, as you start to raise, I lift in the collarbones as a beginning instruction. Ground between the shoulder blades, drop the shoulder blades, lift up. So now, before you start twisting, nudge the inhalation into your rib cage. Feel that opening, and then exhale and twist. Don't be in a rush. More is not more in this twist today. You're trying to bring more of you into the twist. Good. And then release. You can do it the other way. Maybe the more of you could be a placeholder for that, could be back body presence, right? Because my mind, in order to feel the backside of poses, my mind has to relinquish control, right? It has to let the body be the older sibling. Right, so now I'm lifting on my collarbones, I'm spreading between the shoulder blades to ground, I'm hitting down. But before I start twisting too much, I gently nudge the inside of my rib cage on inhalation. I feel that expansion and then exhale and keep that open as I twist them. And then I repeat the process. There is no winning. There's only what's happening. Am I part of it? Good. And then come on back to center. So it turns out that in back bends, it's best to do, well, it helps to do a couple of twists. I'm moving back and forth because you should, right? And maybe we're going in a circle. Well, with the back bend, right? Often twists after back bends help you not, it helps you undo tweaks in your back, right? So that's, we're gonna back bend a couple of times now more. But we're gonna end with some twists, but I want you to do the twists where you're paying attention to your breath, right? So remember to remind you now of what went on, right? Put your finger or your awareness on your chest, right? Well, again, you're starting by lengthening from here up the skin, taking the chin back. Remember, you're dropping under the shoulder, dropping the shoulders, spreading them, lengthening. And now go back to the, again, you're back against the chair. And I often give this instruction, go up and over the back of your chair. Don't just push straight into it, right? Now, keep your eyes open and let the light in, right? To let more light in, spread between the shoulders. Good, and then slowly uncoil. One of the best ways to tweak your neck in a back bend is by not opening the upper thoracic, right? Because then the head does too much, too fast, and it gets tweaked, right? So one of the things that for me, when I do that well, it's so dramatic, I forget where my legs are, right? It's like, whoa, there's a lot of light up there, holy cow. So take some time for a second. And I'm pushing it on my knees. I'm like massaging my own, not massaging, I'm grounding my own body. So I can keep, I'm creating sensations in my legs right? So when I go back up and over the chair, I can stay connected to the earth. So here, I'm pushing into my wrists or my hands into my knees, right? I'm lifting my chest. So you can kind of, for those of you that know, we're doing more Urdhva Dhanurasana than we're doing upward facing dog or cobra. But I want you to feel right here, cobra's right here, right? So I'm pushing on my knees, I'm opening my chest, and there's more earth in this one. So now I'm getting it rhythmic, right? I'm releasing, I'm pushing in, releasing. I'm getting more rhythm here. Because you've got to do things in back bends, especially when you're seated. You've got to do things in back bends that mitigate your tendency to want to use your will too much, right? Okay. So I've got this grounding energy. I'm going to remind myself of Tadasana. So I'm finding the core channel by putting my knees together. And those of you that can press down to your inner heel, do that, right? But realize what you're doing because you're trying to make the midline back bend, right? All this other stuff is just stuff. It's the midline, your spine receiving the sunlight more directly, right? So now I'm going to ground here, right? I'm going to start again, remembering the anchor here, but I'm going to keep my legs grounded as I do what we've been doing a few different times now, right? You're going to start extending this way, broadening between the shoulder blades, keeping the earth, your sitting bones, down to your inner groin, using this energy down to help you go up. Now, don't forget at the end what we've been working on, the front, the skin here, right? The length coming from the earth up and over. Now, at the end here, Broaden across your collar. Drop the shoulder blades in and down. Stay connected to your sitting bones. Down to your inner heel. Good. And then come on back to center. One of the hardest lessons is that for me to have learned in yoga is that more is not necessarily more. So I'm going to take my legs wide for a second, because now I want to add another energy into my back. Right? Because we've been focusing so much on this midline. I want to remember everything. Right? So now I'm doing this thing we do every week lately. Come forward and back and put my knees farther apart. Because this is like nudging into the rib cage with your breath. Trying to remember that although I'm going to go to the midline to back bend, this energy here comes with me. Right? So that was just a check-in with the fullness of my potential sensation. Bringing my legs back. I'm in a back bend. So now my Tadasana midline has more meaning. I'm going to push down. I'm going to hit down, ground my sitting bones. I'm going to start the rise up. And as I hit down and go down through my legs, and I start to lengthen, I anchor here again. I go up and over, keeping the earth here, right? Up and over. And then opening the hood of the chest, taking the neck, the front of the neck, don't jam it back, lengthen it back. Good, and then come on back to center. So I hope you can get that when you're at the apex of your twist, of your back bend, right? It's probably not a great time to take a super deep breath, right? To force a breath, right? That breathing in a back bend, especially when you're so inwardly focused, when you have that much inward focus, don't inflict your breath on it. Figure out how, if you want to increase your breath because it makes you feel more cool, right? Then do it organically by practicing more, right? Yeah, so one more time or 6 more times. I don't know. I'm going to try to back up again. So I'm going to start. This time I'm going to layer in more of the release, right? So I'm going to like ground for a second. I'm going to let my inhalation now, before I get more in a more dynamic or willful position, I'm going to let my breath nudge into my rib cage. I'm going to make sure that energy, the nudging, is captured, is expressed by my core channel. So I'm putting my legs together and I'm taking some time to let my rib cage nudge, keeping it grounded. And then at a certain point when you're ready, you're going to turn towards the sun, right? So I'm going to press down to the earth on my legs. And I'm going to watch from the earth coming up, from the ground, coming up. And then I'm going to start the back bend. So I'm going to do this again. I'm going to nudge into my rib cage. I'm going to create that sensation of hope and lightness. I'm going to make sure I ground it towards the earth. Activate it up so it's coming up like a ring up the spine. I'm going to start to activate Now I need to ground my center of my chest and my between my shoulder blades. Go up. As soon as I start going up, I need to be going down through my legs, right? Up, over. Now I'm going to start lengthening the front of my chest up to the neck. And then I'm going to add the party and broaden across my collarbones. Keep the earth. Now here, hopefully you already nudged into your ribcage. Breathe, but in a way that nudges more than it pushes. And then slowly uncoil. I'm going to come forward a little bit because that was big. Now I'm going to be forward on my thighs here with my forearms bone to bone. And I'm just going to smile and do a little bit of upward facing dog. Right? Little hinkling, like, oh, there's the earth and I can lift. Oh yeah, there it is. I don't have to just be falling over backwards. I can actually find the earth here. Don't work very hard here, right? Then I'm going to do it gentler. I'm going to do it in rhythm. Less words. I'm going to hold it to you. Because when I go upside down like that, I kind of get ungrounded a little bit. So I'm leaning forward again. And I'm going to nudge into my rib cage. Inhale to Sanford. Slow ball. Now, I'm not going to waste those back bends. I'm not just going to twist. I'm going to activate gently into a twist and a back bend. And be really kind in my actions. Doesn't mean I'm not doing it thoroughly. It means I'm being kind. Back to center. Inhale up. Exhale. Find the ground. Find your rib cage. Start the twist. Inside and out. Spine and rib cage. Lift under the collarbones. Find the back. Gentle breath. Exhale, revolve. Good. Come on back to center. I'm always stunned after a yoga practice. I'm moving back and forth here. In fact, I can tell it's going to help me to lengthen up my back. I'm always amazed how much of my body, coming forward here, lengthening, do some version of dog pose, whatever you want to do. I'm always amazed at how much of my body I leave behind during my day. And I'm glad that I practice yoga so I can remember that, oh, actually, the parts of my body that I'm leaving behind is way more subtle than I actually knew. So I've got length in my back right now. And I'm using my breath to breathe into the bottom edge of my rib cage to create space. Now I'm going to do that and gently lift my sternum. Not just your head, right? And then with the lifted sternum, I'm going to breathe a little bit. Because a slightly lifted sternum means I breathe better to my sitting bone. And that can be the changing station to my legs. Place where it switches. Now I'm going to gently nudge into my rib cage and open up more hope, more subtlety. I'm going to stay in this position and soften my jaw and my lips, skin on my face. But I'm going to stay grounded. I'm not in Shavasana. I'm adding Shavasana to mollify my will. So my breath gets better. Good, and then come back. Find some symmetry. Again, I want my bones to feel Shavasana. So, especially because I'm not lying flat and getting so much support. So I have to do some things to get the sensation of support to even make it to my bone. And then feeling each foot, each sitting bone, trying to land my bones, but then also feel my skin, inward and outward. Couple of breaths. Now prepare for Shavasana. So get in a position where you can receive the chair even more because you just set up the discipline to be able to really let the chair in. I can tell like I overdid a little bit on the right side of my abdomen. I don't know what your story is, but I'm going to try to for me, for my story, I need to let there be more surrender in my left sitting bone. What's your story? Balance your head over your neck if you're sitting upright. Temples, jaw, inside of the mouth. Center of the chest. Emptiness in the ankles, the knees, the hips. Shoulders, the elbows, the wrists. Feel your breath. Don't change it. Thank your body. It animates emptiness. The mind cannot. Start to increase your breath. Slightly deeper inhalation. Slightly longer exhalation. When you're ready, open it. Close them if it's too brusque. Open again to receive better. Couple of breaths. Notice if you've got like any tweaking or tenderness in any part of your body. You might want to be attentive to that. Maybe you're thinking about lying down later today. Do it. You know, take care of the little crunched up parts, because back bends when you use your will, especially when you do it in a chair, can crumple things up like saran wrap certain places. So you try to like find a way out of those, pull it back open. All right, everybody. I'll stay on after for a while and let the light in. All right. Hands together. Namaste. Spirit in me bows the spirit in you.